It is 5:30. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Thursday, June 5th, 2025. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the east wall of the council chambers, and a notice of this meeting was published in the York News Times on May 29th, 2025. If you would, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amanda, the roll call.
Piper. McGregor.
Here.
Northrup. Here.
There you go.
North.
Here.
Shepherd. Postier.
Here.
Wilkinson.
Here.
Vanish.
You were all sent the minutes of the May 15th, 2025 meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Next item are claims of elected officials.
Yes, we have quite a few claims of elected officials. The first is Tony North of North Printing and Office Supply in the amount of $800.53. I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Amanda?
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Abstain.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes. Next, we have Jeff Piper of Piper's Inc. in the amount of $17,169. And I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes. Then I also have Jeff Piper from Piper's Potties in the amount of $270. And I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes. Last, we have a claim from Stephen Postier as a business affiliation with York County Development Corporation in the amount of $8,797.83. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Abstain.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Our next agenda item are the claims for the period of May 16th through June 5th, 2025.
The Finance Committee did meet yesterday to review those claims, and I move for approval for the claims period between May 16th, 2025 and June 5, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions of the Finance Committee? Hearing none. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Next is City Administrator Report. Dr. Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It's summertime and the city is busy. So we have all kinds of recreational programs and library programs. Tyler is helping with some gaming programs, so lots of options, and also adult library programs and recreation, so lots of things going on all throughout the city, as well as fixing our streets and all of those kinds of things, and mowing and so many things in the summer. So lots of things going on. If you've always wanted to be a lifeguard and you just never did do that, we are still looking for lifeguards too. So put in an application.
Sure, you did say there are some alternative uniforms that could be worn if you'd like to be involved, so.
There is a t-shirt, shorts option. So, by all means, let us know if you'd like to be a lifeguard. But it's great. I really, really appreciate all the folks that are working so hard to make these opportunities possible for all of our families. So, also, this summer, we are working on our comprehensive plan, updating our comprehensive plan, and we have several meetings next week to have conversations with different groups about what their vision for the city is. And that includes some city staff, some realtors, small business owners, other folks like that. We have a meeting that's open to anyone in the public on Wednesday night at 5:30. So it is on the front page of our website. Also on the front page of our website, you can click to get to the plan website. We also have cards here that you can pick up and share with other people that have a QR code to get to that comp plan website. Comp plan website has an interactive map where you can go and make comments, and we have several people who have been making comments on the map. and see what other people are suggesting they'd like to see in the city. It also has a very short survey, so the survey is about 4 questions. And then each month, there's a new question of the month. And I believe our June question of the month is also there. So the June question is a parks question. Right? So what are your priorities for parks? And then you'll see the question of the month changes. So public meeting next Wednesday, 5:30 here. And that is an interactive meeting. It's not a council meeting. It's like we'll be out in these chairs. People will be talking and about what they want to see in the future. And then go to the website, take the survey, work on the map, and learn more about the process. That's what I have.
I just love the map, the interactive
Yeah.
mapping. I mean, it brought up a lot of conversation in our office, and there's a lot of good conversation, and they were all engaged with that. That's just a really.
And the times change, so it's kind of fun. I mean, that's a different
It's good
part
a lot
of
people's input.
how things have been, so that's kind of, I think that is a neat component of this time.
Excellent, thank you.
Very good, thank you, Dr. Crawford. Next, we want to consider approval of an open contract with the American Legion for community projects. Does anyone want to speak to this, or why we're needing to do this?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. When we have council members come on board, when they have any kind of business interest, potential conflict of interest, then we have this process so that it is very transparent and clear that we have a council member who is connected to this business or nonprofit. For example, we have when we do YCDC claims, Stephen Postier is considered claims of an elected official. So we have a council member connected with American Legion. So when we have any claims where we are paying the American Legion for something, then it will be recognized as claims of an elected official. And that's why that's why we have this open contract document on our agenda tonight.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And we've done this many times before for people, but very good. So we would need approval of an open contract with the American Legion for community projects.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further comment? Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Our next agenda item is consider approval of special designated licenses for the Sunset Bowl Cornhole League Tournament at 1923 North Lincoln Avenue. Dates as follows: June 20th, June 27th, July 11th, July 18th, and July 25th, 2025. I do not see anyone from Sunset Bowl here this evening. This is something that they have done in prior years. I don't know that there's been any concerns or anything about this, and so I think it's just so they can kind of run this kind of fun tournament up there, so.
Well, it's just because it's outside. I mean, I've
Yeah.
never heard any bad complaints.
No, I know they've done it for a number of years now, so.
I move for approval.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further comments? Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup. North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
I have an appointment of Leanna Hawley to the Library Advisory Board for a term ending July 1st, 2028. Leanna is taking whose place?
Oh, I don't have that information off the top of my head.
It was the attorney.
Jerry Clinch.
There you go. Yes, who's taken another position, so appreciate his service on that board and would like to appoint Leanna to this position.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrup.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Next, consider approval of Resolution 2025-13 to declare certain city property surplus and authorize disposition of that surplus property. What are we disposing of?
Old pool lounge chairs and a rusting filing cabinet and a broken bench and pool ropes.
And we have surplus the Chevy Colorado that we're soon to be replacing, an older dump truck, an older painter, street painter.
Pretty good list this time.
Big money maker.
How are we doing on this? Are we getting rid of any of this stuff, or is people are buying these things?
Yeah,
Good
basically, it does, it means that Green Auction picks them
Yeah.
up, and then they have the auction, so we're not worried
Oh,
about
so
sealed
they
bids
just-
or anything
they
like
take
that,
it
and then
all.
they.
Yeah,
Right,
and we turn it over to them.
right.
They do it, and
So if it makes money, we get some money. If it doesn't make money, they still take care of
Yeah,
it.
just to get rid of it.
Right.
Is there anything like?
it's truly being
Yeah.
disposed of.
So we have to do this for everything, we need broken benches, you have to list as surplus, you can't just throw a broken bench in the trash.
I don't know what makes the broken bench worth, that's a good question.
The lounge chair is nothing, because it's the straps that will body will
Yeah.
lay. The broken bench will probably go for $30. It just needs two new, like, back.
But I guess what determines like why do we put listed as surplus to sell it, if it's stuff's broken, it's not worth anything, we just
Oh,
throw it
people
away?
find treasures. Like, the filing cabinet's rusted, it'll go in the trash. This bench, I bet, would bring in $25-30. It's one of those composite benches, and the back thing has a crack in it, like 2 cracks, and so I bet someone will,
Steven, this is a high-quality product.
Yeah.
We're-
It stays on here.
You know, in the old days when I was growing up, the York radio station used to have the bargain counter. And people would sell practically anything, so, okay. Let's have a motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further comments? Hearing none. Amanda?
McGregor.
Yes.
Northrop.
yes.
North.
Yes.
Postier.
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Yes.
Our next agenda item is ordinance number 2396 to amend Chapter 28, Article 2, Peddlers, Section 2856 fees, to provide for an annual fee. If someone would like to, I think everyone else on the ordinance committee is gone except you.
Oh, okay.
We will not suspend the rules tonight, so this will be first reading because we would need 6 council people to do that. But if you want to just give us an overview, we'll read it this time and then we'll have it back on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, all we're doing is adding the addition to be able to do it for a year. I mean, it was already, they could do per day, per week, per month, we're just adding, being able to get your permit for the year. That's it. Just makes it a little bit easier for everybody.
Any questions of the one ordinance committee member that's here? Okay, well, consider this first reading and we'll have second reading and maybe passage the next time. That brings us to our last agenda item, which is again, an ordinance committee report on the food trucks, which again, you're the only ordinance committee person, so would you like to make a report?
Well, we had, and while we were looking into the peddlers thing, which obviously this was written a long time ago when they're talking about some of this stuff, but we were discussing adding food trucks into that. And literally, the only addition to the ordinance was, it read, any person transacting a temporary business within the city of an established place of business, and we just added, and operators of food trucks. So, this is really sticky and legally pretty marginal, and the reason for that is that in the wording from the state, and it's in our ordinance as well, is that any agricultural products that are produced and processed within the state are exempt from this. So, you got your truck out and you got beef that was raised in Nebraska, then you don't need a permit for that. So the enforcement was just a little ambiguous, trying to figure that out. So we discussed putting that food truck in there. Now we're just gonna take that out. We're not gonna have it. We're just not gonna change anything.
I would definitely see that that would not be a place to have that, but it should have its own category if it is gonna be probably stated. Wouldn't it be better, Charlie, to
Well, there were some other issues also. We kicked around the idea of if we include food trucks, what about people that are selling crafts out of vehicles? What about people that are selling other types of things in addition to food trucks? How do we include them, all these other categories of vendors that are out there?
In most towns that you would go to, and I think we're about the only one left that doesn't have something like that, but basically, I thought, it seems to me like they categorize it because it requires a special permit. I mean, you have to have a food license from the state to be selling food, and you need a sales tax ID. Now, I think that's the two things, like when you go to Lincoln, it's quite a process to be able to sell there. They've simplified it more than they used to be able to, but it's still, I mean, but the biggest thing is they required that these food trucks would have a manager's license on site at all times. I'm not sure if that's still on the books or whatever, but we don't even have that in our
I mean,
restaurant.
what does that mean exactly?
Well,
Is that
it
like a
used to-
food handler's permit, or how? does
yes, well, there's a food handler's permit, and there used to be 3 different levels, and the first one was a class 1, and basically it's, you know, you know everything, you know,
Yeah.
you're the owner and you're in charge and you've been through all the classes, and it's a higher level of education. And they require that has to be done in all the restaurants. Now, we don't even have that in York at all. I mean, I don't even know if we require food handlers permits in York, but, the sales tax, the other thing is then being able to have be able to check and make sure you're paying sales tax, which I think would be in the best interest of the city to make sure that's happening as well, because these food trucks that are just coming in for all the big stuff or some that are staying here forever and just only to stay paying cash, are they actually paying their fair share of sales tax to us for being here?
So
That, you know, other
So I
people
think
are.
we were relying on the state as far as, you know, the food handlers, the permitting for being able to handle the food.
And that, I get your point.
And then this, and like, that, you know, your tax ID. but-
Yeah,
So I don't know how we would be able to,
the
I
only
mean, are
thing
you
about
think,
that.
no, go ahead.
Well, the only thing about that is that if you have somebody just flying in here one day, the only enforcement is that your food inspector. And right now, there like hardly any exist anymore.
In the
They're
state?
In the state. And so your chances, I mean, you could go for a couple of years probably and never get caught without a food enforcement, especially if you're doing it on the weekends. Now, even some of the big shows, you know, like say you used to go to, obviously the state fair, you're gonna actually see one for sure, but like 4th of July and some of the bigger Fremont days and ones that have a lot of food trucks, you won't even see a food inspector there usually. And that's the only enforcement of the state part of it. So, I don't know.
So when you say that we're one of the few that maybe don't have something like that, are you saying like if you came into York, should you have to show your license and also report your sales tax? I mean, is everyone doing that's
Or
here now?
at least give-
I mean, do they come to the city and report that information to
Well, I
us?
think they should have to have on record that they have a sales tax ID number. It's up to the state whether they're reporting it or not.
Right,
But
but
as long as we are.
But we
not
should
allowed-
verify that, or at least
I
it
would
should be
think so.
verified?
I think so.
because the application for.
Because we're not gonna get any city sales tax out of that if they don't have it.
Right.
The application for the peddler's permit right now wouldn't have that. They don't have a tax ID number on there. I don't think.
But what you're saying might be something to add a separate section, not just try to add it as a single.
It's just a form of the idea of the, you know, like your,
I mean, we should at least have some contact with, I think, everyone that's in town to.
and then another thing is if they would come in and then all of a sudden they could have a product that maybe not their fault, but maybe it was a recalled product and they get a listeria outbreak, we don't know where they came from. We can't contact them.
Like Four Corners or whoever would chase that down would have no trail.
So then where do we draw, okay, so in the ordinance committee, where do we draw the line then from, if you're just serving food to the public, we could quantify that, but then what about, for instance, farmer's market?
Okay, so they have the home exemption, you know, like your
The
home.
cottage law.
The cottage law. Yeah, that would be that's a whole different mark, that's another category.
Yeah.
That you would do, I would just say that you are, you know, you actually have a food truck, you know, and you have, I guess,
Yeah, because the cottage law doesn't allow.
I would look at Lincoln has
So
it.
it's a package, that's a packaged product.
Correct.
That is
Well, and like if you bake at home and you're just baking like cookies and stuff like that, you don't need a license to sell. That doesn't require anything. It's just hazardous, hazardous foods that could spoil or you can't cook properly that could actually make somebody sick. Those are probably what you need to discuss. Like if somebody's in town selling donuts, do we need it? Well, but if they're in town every day selling donuts, maybe make sure they get some sales tax out of the deal. But you know what I'm saying? The fact that if they're in town with, potentially hazardous food products, making money on our citizens, I think we should step up a level of due diligence, so to speak, on this a little bit.
So then maybe we would look into not putting it into 28-19, the definition of a peddler, but maybe a whole nother.
We've kicked that idea around, whether or not to adopt a food truck set of ordinances, and have looked into that. A number of reasons we haven't done it. One, the complexity of trying to do it and having the staff to administer it. At this point, we don't. And secondly, the legislature keeps talking about food truck legislation. They've considered it a number of different times, and we're kind of hoping that they take it over. Hopefully they will. I think Dr. Crawford, when you were in the legislature, it was even being considered then.
And right now, the state regulation for food trucks right now is mostly a registry, and then the cities report what you have to do to have a food truck.
And as you pointed out, Lincoln and Omaha, they've got food truck ordinances that are very detailed. How would we administer them?
I don't think I would suggest being that detailed because you wouldn't need it for somebody that's just going to be here for a day. I mean, and we're not as big of a city and have as big of events that you're talking about bigger dollars that they are in Lincoln probably as well. But my idea would be that, even if the new electronic process that we're getting building permits on there, why couldn't they get a food truck permit when with their contact information, their business ID,
That's what I'm
your
saying.
tax ID number, and blah, 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 just so we have that on file and you pay a $25 fee to be here for a week and then graduate it up to a year.
Just so as long as we had a contact, their tax ID,
Or just
and then maybe even where they were located,
Yeah.
where they're going to
home
locate.
address, their business address even, and then just a fee for a permit type situation, maybe not just a bunch of rules, maybe
Okay, without
is
doing
that
any
different?
regulation of the
No,
operation.
just a tracking
Just more
more.
of a
Yeah.
tracking
Yeah.
tool.
Just a tracking tool so that if there was a problem, you could contact the right people to go and find them and tell them, and make sure they don't come back or resolve it.
Just for food trucks or other types of temporary?
I would say probably
Any type
any,
of temporary.
Somebody selling melons
That's
and
not
sweet
some
corn in
kind
a
of-
parking lot, does that count?
I'd say anything that's not covered under the cottage law, so if
Somebody
you're-
selling rugs out of a van?
Yeah, Dan, please.
I think they should be treated the same, because they're actually, especially when we have businesses here in town with brick and mortar, or even just food trucks or whatever, but that are paying tax and sales tax and, property tax, employing employees and stuff. If somebody comes in and sells a competitive item, I think we should be, treating them as like we would our own business people. They should be treated that way as well. Am I wrong on that?
No?
If they're going against, their
I
competition.
like the idea of just an online permitting system, of just so we.
Yeah, definitely with the new
Just so we know.
system, that's what I was bringing up, like when you do that.
And I wasn't able to attend the last ordinance committee meeting. I was out, but there's a couple of us, city employees, that I guess this fell into our lap that we get to do this. And we looked at that second paragraph about a person transacting a temporary business on an established place of business. And we get questions on paintings, rugs, flags, tools, XYZ frozen meat from another state, wicker baskets. And that all falls under the peddlers, and we looked at it that the food trucks their peddlers also because of that same or that same paragraph. And what you brought up, we do get people, businesses that call in and says, there's a food truck across the street. Do they just get to do that for free because I'm paying taxes, I've got brick and mortar, they're taking half of my business every day. So we're hoping to get some kind of direction on, do we do the food truck separately, all the other vendors a different category? We did make a provision in this online permitting system for tracking vendors or peddlers or food trucks. And if they come and pay $5 or a day, a week, a month, a year, we can track that to, because after if they do the 1 day thing, after 1 day, it expires. And we can see that. Our current online or system we have doesn't work real good for that.
So like you were saying, like selling things like the Snap-on truck that would drive and make sales of tools to places around here, would that fall under the currently under the peddler? Because they come in temporarily to sell?
Well, they're actually going to the businesses and selling them to the mechanics as opposed to going to a parking lot and selling, XYZ tools, competing with the tool stores.
Yeah, so it definitely gets into some gray areas as you're starting to talk about this stuff, but I think it's definitely worth probably pursuing or looking into more what that would look like.
So Dan, you said that the new permitting system will be able to do this, but right now we're not able to do it. Is that correct?
Yeah, for Encode, it doesn't.
Work. Okay.
No, it doesn't. The new one will be able to track that, and when we put that in, we actually put an expiration date on it, and it'll just flag the course right away. Whether it's 1 day or 5 days or a year. And the year thing was brought up by some of these food truck vendors is, we don't want to come down every week or every month and renew this. Can we just get a yearly license?
So then when the new system is going and somebody does it for a day or a week and it expires, then they're still out there, then what?
Yeah.
Then are we enforcing it? Are we gonna send somebody
Well, we'll
down?
have the option to,
And the paper system we have now, I mean, they provide their license and where they're gonna be set up, all that information, and I approve those. So if I drive by, well, I know this guy, he only signed up for a day and he's been here a week.
Yeah.
So we do have on our website, if you haven't seen it yet, if you're gonna be a food truck, I want to be a food truck, it says do this and do this and do this. And then we have these flyers that if you're set up in the parking lot, we're not gonna confront you, we're going to.
Just hand this to you.
Yes. And it does have the section in here that if you're going to be a food truck, that you have to be registered with the Nebraska Department of Agriculture and that you must have your sales tax number.
Big deal.
We remind them, but that's
Yeah, but that's as far as you go.
we're not going back and getting on Lincoln's website to see if they really have that.
Well, this is why we brought this, because there was so much gray area when we were
Yeah.
talking about it.
Well,
We thought.
but
I mean,
there's
it's
really no, if they've been anywhere else in a first-class city, they've dealt with this and they know it. There's
Then they-
probably something they need to do.
Then they, yeah,
Either that or maybe they fly one nights and then they probably won't come back, and you don't want them back.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like we've got a better way to do it going in the future.
Yeah, that would help a lot.
To track it.
Yeah, and then we just probably need to continue to visit about this a little bit and maybe do a little research on a couple other communities and see what they're doing too. So,
Grand Mountain would be a good one because they're not actually
They've got them
big.
all over the place. And
Yeah.
they're set up on lots, just like up at Stingers and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and they have their permit, the city has their permit, and they go by certain days you're there, because like you can get one just for the state fair, the time you're there, or a week, a month, or a day. And theirs would be easy to copy. I think theirs is electronic now too. And it's been a while, I've been to Grand Island, but, yeah, it's not that. Then they're not out like the police coming to visit you all the time, it's just,
Like you said,
they're collecting their money.
make a track
in.
just in case there is something that,
And we're not their food truck police.
No, no.
okay.
But,
And you really don't care unless there was a problem at the end of the day.
well, it's when we get those calls that this truck is set up across from my business, you know, of selling food.
Yeah, I think they should be paying some, I really do.
And then, like, Geneva has a registration, Minden does not. I think Aurora does, but Kearney doesn't, so it just depends where they go.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you,
2
Dan.
seconds on this, Carter.
No?
We do food trucks at the ballpark complex, and since it is, we don't want any competition with our concession stand, since we profit from our concession stand, the vendors have to pay us $100 per day to be there, and then they have to supply us with their permitting, there's sales tax, their menu, so I make sure that there's not any competition, and then they have to be completely self-efficient, so we're not supplying them supplies, power, anything.
Yeah, we had discussed that, and then like at the Holtes too, where there was extra, like we knew that you would be kind of a,
Pain.
Well, but that, we're talking on city property
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
as well. That
is
can,
what
be-
I
you can
said.
make your own rules for
Yeah,
Yeah,
that.
you can do
but I
This
was
is
like,
this
this
is
is
for public
just,
stuff.
yeah, that's a public stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so in our brochures,
worry
there's
about you.
I was gonna make them, you know that.
on our website, if you want to be a food truck, if you want to go into a city park, go to the Parks and Recs website. If you're going to be at the Holtes Center, go to the Holtes Center website. So it doesn't even go through here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if they want to go into a private parking lot, they need to register, but they don't need a right-of-way permit. They want to set up in a city parking lot, then they have to register and get a right-of-way permit, or park along the street someplace.
And
So,
then
that's a good idea.
we tried to guide them,
That's a
Dr.
good
Crawford
start, yeah.
put together a very nice website to kind of guide everybody, if you're gonna do this, go here.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Good discussion. Let's continue the discussion at the ordinance committee and with things of how to do this. And Jerry's got some good input because it's kind of down your,
Been down the road.
yeah, kind of in your wheelhouse. So that, you know, that's good. So,
Probably should have you come to an ordinance committee.
and I think, you know, with our new software stuff is gonna give us some new opportunity to do some things too. I think to know who's in town and be able to track that and stuff. So, good discussion with that. That adjourns our normal council meeting.